Monday, Pashas Pekidai. So, Baruch Hashem, till today we'll discuss mainly our focus was to know what kind of words, how to encourage the kids, idut, how to encourage, acknowledge, appreciate the kids' behavior, and how to motivate them to continue being on that track, a positive behavior track. Let's know how to conceptually, how to provide them that boost and that motivation. However, Bez Hashem, today we'll discuss a different, another shlaf, another step to it. It's far more important to understand that Be'etzem is the words and the statements that everyone releasing to each other. What gives the meanings to the statement, what gives that power to motivate with our statements people to produce and to continue and to be on the right track. It's not really so much the words. It's more of an energy that the words contain. It's not only important what we say, it's far more important how we say. Meaning the number one, it's the tune. And what kind of tune we provide and release our statements. Sometimes we see that we can tell to a child, Shefele, you'll get a frask. Let's go backtrack. Let's say we give a frask to our child. Sometimes the frask is not so painful versus when we threaten a child with a frask. Meaning to say, okay, I gotta give him a frask, I'll give a patch. So, and first of all, in psychological field and past traumatic stress disorder field, they claim, and I think it's not at odd with the Yiddish shkufa, that the words, the verbal abuse, let's call it, the verbal abuse has way more impact, gives more impact on the child than the physical abuse. So it's the facts is true, because if we see that most of people are being traumatized mostly by the words, not so much the physical abuse. Of course, physical abuse does give that stress disorder, just does provide does give that negative impact on child. However, it causes more pain, more deep pain when we verbal abuse kids. So it's far more important not only to know what we say to our children, but also how we say, how we tell them, how we release our statement, how we present our statements to them. So number one is tune. The same is the one. Two people can say it was the same statement, but one person, the statement will motivate the person you're talking to. Let's say two parents, let's say mother and a father. Let's say sometimes the father's statement can discourage the child to prevent. And the same statement, when being released by the mother, let's say, it motivates the kids. So the question remains, what's the difference? Father said the same statement, and the mother says also the same statement. The answer for it is the tune. Tune takes a big part on whether your statement will be accepted or rejected. When we say that, when we release the statement with more of aggression, more demanding, dominating energy with it will be rejected. Of course, the child will be forced to follow up with the statement with a command, but inwardly he will reject the statement. Versus if our statement will be released in more of a calmer form, it will provide the motivation for child to go ahead and move on and produce more better good deeds, more better behavior. That's the ikar. What gives the most influence for a child, what influencing the most child is the tune. How he hears it, how he listens to it, and how he observes it. Not the words. Words are just expressing. Words is also important, of course, but the tune, that's what gives that spice, or bitter spice, or sweet spice to our statements. Again, we have to understand also that the kids in the younger years, their brain development, the brain capacity is not that wide, so they're more working with sensors, not with intellectuality. So when the father says good statement, but with aggression, a child does not have that brain developed yet to understand, okay, let me focus on the message, not the messenger, and let me just take, okay, he's saying Lamas, the father is saying something important. The child does not have that brain which can distinguish between the message and messenger. To the child, due to his not that broad and wide brain capacity, by him everything is one. Message and messenger are the same. So if the message being released to the child in more aggressive form, he will get scared and he'll reject momentarily the message. The Ramban, when he wrote a letter to his son, he starts his letter very interesting. He says, he gives advice to his child. He's saying as follows: Tisnahak tomit ledaber kol divorecho benachas lekol odom bechol eis. Very interesting. There's like very narrow criteria in communicate, how to communicate with people. Ramban says Tisnahak tomit. He's not talking about kids. It's a general rule in communications, how we have to talk to others. Let's put for 5 seconds away the child, the Chinuk part, the Bechlal, communications with others. How do we communicate with others? I think it's number one. I think we need to be corrected. It's the communication skills. The communication number one, we communicate to people, especially to kids. We have to communicate openly and directly. However, open and directly gives a certain impression of being aggressive. However, it's not. The message has to come openly and directly yet. We have to follow up with the advices that Ramban gives to his son. Tisnai tomet, constantly, always, the dabir, kol devorechu. Kol means all your words, anything. It's whether it's news between Russia and Ukraine, whether it's Torah, anything. Kol devorechu. All your words, any word you're releasing, you're talking to other people, you communicate with other people, you have to be tomet ledaber kol devorechu benachas. Benachas meaning calmly, with serenity, with certain content. Benachas, not only to your close people, to you, but lechol odom, to everyone. Not only certain occasions, but bechol eis, at any time. At any time, that should be the installed communication. With how we have to communicate with people, how Ramban's son needs to communicate with people. Of course, this letter relates not only to Ramban's son, it relates to anyone. If you want to succeed in social life, and social life is something which is naturally people crave for, number one, we have to adopt and learn how to communicate with people. So the concept that we're going to be discussing, Be'ez Hashem, now is not related only to kids. It's related to spouse, related to friends, to family members, to brothers, sisters, father, mother, anyone. The whole Adam, as Ramban says. The source of the importance of proper communications we find several times in Shas. Not only the Rishonim, Shas, the Chazal. Chazal embrace, Chazal encourage, Chazal acknowledge, and pointing out how important it is to communicate properly with other people. And however, when someone learns and understands and accepts and adopts this communication skills, he really it's opening for him a lot of doors to enter to a new life, more calmer life, more pleasant life, a life free of emotional distress, of any kind of stress. It's freeing yourself from guilty conscience or shame. There's a lot of things, because a lot of guilt and shame comes because people don't know how to communicate. Again, it's not about shutting down. It's not about just closing your mouth and not just saying anything. It's not the case. It's talking as much as you need and as much as you want, but know how to talk, how to communicate, which is very important in all areas. In areas marriage life, socialize with friends, family members, and especially to the kids in Chinoch Abonim Abonis. The Mishnah Shabbos, the Masechta Shabbos says as follows: Gimel dvarim Adam tzorich Adam loimer b'sach beisa erev Shabbos. Three things. A Mishnah, Rabbi Kudish wrote this Mishnah. Three things a person has to ask in his home before Shabbos, in his house, im chashaycha, before Shabbos, mamish before Shabbos. To some people, it's hard to relate to the Mishnah because by them it's erev Shabbos is already on Thursday. But however, it needs to. Mishnah said that the person needs to make sure that this. We'll say 3 things now. These 3 things are very important to us before Shabbos comes in. Number 1, asartem. Those days used to be the fruits. We went to buy in the market fruits. People they don't just eat the fruits. They need to. They have to take the maize, trima, maize, rishon. All the maises have to be mafresh, trimas, and maises from the fruits. Asartem, because if the family members did not give a maize, these fruits will be forbidden to eat on Shabbos. Number 2 is araftem. Did you put eruv? Because if you didn't have eruv, they wouldn't be able to carry on Shabbos. And number 3 is adlikas aner. Did you light the candles for Shabbos? Again, these 3 things is very important to solve before Shabbos comes in, because once the Shabbos comes in, you can't solve this let's call problems. You can't do it, because to give ma'aser, to put the eruv and to be madlik, to light the candle is alles asirim or the rice is the rabbanon. So need to be done before Shabbos. Therefore, Mishnah sake is important to us before Shabbos comes in. If these 3 things were solved before Shabbos, so let's at least let's visualize. Let's go to Kodimian. It's Erev Shabbos. A little time before Shabbos, just about Shabbos comes in, and it's very hectic. For some people, Erev Shabbos, it's Erev Shabbos before Zman. It's very hectic, very tense. And Od Ma'at, noch a bistel, Shabbos mamish a few minutes, Shabbos comes in, and the house is intense. The house is, it's Yiddish home. It's not it's not that calm. And now you have to. It requires on the balabus, on the father, to ask this question. So Erev Shabbos before Zman, usually men are very vulnerable to explosions. And here he's carrying this responsibility also of Meiser and the Eruv and Adlokas and Neir. It's very possible that the father will explode, because the Matzav is very vulnerable, very tense. Therefore, looks like this tense atmosphere Erev Shabbos before the Zman is not something which appeared just in our generations. Looks like Zman Talmud also was the time was very, very vulnerable. Because Gemara says, Rabbi Baravina says, even though the Rabbanon say that the father needs to ask these 3 questions, a father needs to release this statement, these questions, with a pleasant tone. In order for his home, for his wife and kids to be makabel, to accept his question. Interesting. Rabbi felt it's important to say this halacha. Avada, yes, because it's right now. It's a little before Shabbos, and father is very vulnerable to explosions. Therefore, Rabbi said, it's not about you asking. It's about to encourage your family members, your wife and your kids to follow with your statements, to follow with your questions, and actually execute it, and to give ma'aser, to put eruv, and to be madlik and there to tzimdelech. Rabbi said a gewaltige nekude. Sorich lememrinaye benechise. Father needs to say this word benechise in a calm version, in a calm tune. In order for your family to accept it. A gewaltige chizuk, and a gewaltige gilui. These 3 questions to be released very calm, because it's not an optional. If you will say with mechise, your words will be accepted. Your words will be accepted. You have to. So here is the source. One of the sources that we have to say, not only about what we say, it's how we say it, but what kind of tune and energy we're releasing the sentence and the statements. Asartem, araftem, idlikesne can be released with aggression. They will be self-understood, will be rejected. But here the Rabbi Machadash Halucha, it's not stam epsa huga, it's not minik, it's not certain good midah. What Chazal says the Halucha, it's the law. One of the Yiddish laws, one of the Yiddish Haluchas is you have to not only release the statements, the questions. You have to You have to say it, you have to release it with a proper and calm tune. This Rabbi, this halukha from the Rabbi, it's not only appears to be graded in Masechet Shabbos. It's several times in Shas the Rabbi keeps repeating the same message. How important it is to release the statements. If you want to encourage someone, if you want to encourage especially by your family members, if you want to encourage them to do what you want them to do, or to do what they're required to do, you have to say it b'nechis. You have to say it in a calm tune. Calm tune, a tune which comes from serenity, content. Only then your statements will provide that geschmack and motivation for your family members to do. If your state will be released with aggression, it will be rejected, and not only rejected. What do I mean? Gemara says Masechet Gittin. The same Rabbi is Gemara Chazar. It's over in Masechet Gittin. The Vuf Omad Beis. Gemara is Tazoy. Omar Rav Chizda. LeOilam al yatil Adam eima Isayir b'Sech Beisa. You should never make your family fearful of you. I think a lot of people can't relate to it. We'll come home, and some kids are very fearful of their parents. Lav davka, they're afraid that the father or mother will give them a patch or do any kind of. They don't afraid so much of physical pain, but they do fearful of emotional and verbal pain. So therefore, there is a Rav Chizda says that le'olam never ayatul odam ema v'sar b'tabeisa. You should never put fears and tents in your home. Why? But there's no need for explanation, because people who got exposed to be raised in a fearful home, they know what kind of damage and what kind of feeling this atmosphere and this provides to people. But Gemara says as follows: someone who is creating that ema seira in his home. Soif Hebrew lidashuda shavayres. Someone who arises in the wakes and creates a tense atmosphere in his home. At the end, he is putting himself in certain vulnerability to fall into shloish averes chamures. 3 the main averes chamures. Number 1 is gil haroes. Number 2 is shrichas dumim, and number 3 is chilul Shabbos. And Gemara counts out how the dynamic of this works. Everybody can look there, and very strong message will come out from the Gemara. Gemara says someone said the father, someone's father, or Gemara said discuss about the Odin. Father released the message with very aggressive tone to his wife, and she got scared that she did not go to mikveh, and she was scared to tell to her husband that she did not go to mikveh. At the end, he had a relationship with the wife who did not go to mikveh. It's gil haroes. She told him actually that she went to mikveh because she was afraid of him. And at the end of the day, he had a relationship with the nida. Number two is this first number gil haroes. This Rashi explains there in Gittin. Number 2 is shrichas damim. Shrichas damim was there's a shivcha, that she was scared of her odin, and she ran away. The whole story there. At the end of the day, bekitzer, it lead to bishefech domim, it lead to murder. Number 3, chilul Shabbos. Rashi explains that the wife forgot to light the candles, and she was so fearful of her spouse that she lit the candles on Shabbos. She was machal Shabbos deiraisa because of the fears that she had of her spouse. So, this Gemara has a lot of messages, but here comes out again the important. To be a fearful person, the person doesn't have to be like a boogeyman. It doesn't be like a Schwarze fears of his physicality. The fearful means a person can be an erlachamench, very, very, very erlachamench. He damas 3 times a day, Shemer Shabbos, is a medagd baluch and everything, but still he has that fears, that he projected fears, and those fears leads to shloish avayras kemat Allah avayras and chamuras, gil haroes, shvichas domim, and the chilul Shabbos. Here the Chazal discovering the heart of communication. If we will pressure It will release the statement, nice, good statement, but the statement will come along with that pressure, the controlling, the dominating energy. It will train the family members to lie. You know how fearful you have to be to lie to your spouse. You know, go to mikvah, to be machshel the spouse in avera chamura, and to have a relationship with the nida. She lied to him. She lied to him. She told her spouse. She told her husband that she went to mikvah, and she did not go to. How did she lie? It's like a gefährliche Avera. A schreckliche Avera to have a relationship with the nida. It's mamash a koris. She was machshel the koris. Why? Because she was shit fierce of him. How far the fears can influence the person? Fears, when someone's fearful, in Gemara Shaidu, in Rashi also, I said many times, or this Rashi, Pashas Vayigash, it doesn't matter how a person is derhoiven, how high the person is, if he lives with fears, he will lie. Here, the Gemara says the extreme, how far it can go, how far the fears can bring a person to lie, even to machshel, is a koris. So the fears, when parents create a fearful, they project fears on kids, they project domination, control on the kids. Be aware that doesn't. We can provide the kids the best education, the best care. They can have every single day steaks, and they can be taken care of very well, and they can be go to Orlando every cholamoyed, and they will have everything and anything. They will still drop out. They will still lie to you. They will still, it leads to shvichas domim. Actually, I did conduct certain suicidal cases of Bocharim that the main core of their fears and anxiety they had, because they always do it shekach fears of their parents. And I know the parents. Parents are very fine people and outside, but inside, at home, they're just projecting the tense energy, that controlling, and it leads to shvichas damim. I actually, unfortunately, was able to understand this Gemara more deeply, what the shvichas damim means. Again, it's a very simple rule, as Rambam writes his son, benachas. Kol the Tomid, kol the Berecha benachas, lechol adam, bechol eis. Anytime, indoors, outdoors, in shul, at work, anywhere. Kol the Berecha benachas. A person we need to dispute from our vocabulary, from our perceptions, that with control we succeed. With control we don't succeed. With control we never succeed. We never get anywhere. We get somewhere. We get to be machshel our kids with Chil Shabbos and Gilarois ourselves, but we won't succeed. We won't achieve any kind of positive result. Sometimes the parents are wondering, why are the kids lying? Why the kids lie? The answer is the Pashut. Somewhere elsewhere in the system of the child, these fears leads to lie, but lie not only in mild cases, lie even in very, very, very important cases. So we try to push the kids. Okay, tell them what's bothering you, what's going on. It's not about investigating to be FBI agent and to dig in what bothers the child. It's about the release and to take away and reduce to the child the reasons why the child lying. And the number one reason why you cause the child to lie is because child being raised in a home full of fears, tense, and control. The fears and control trains the child, and not only the child, trains the spouse to lie. So in order to have that, of course, if your relationship with your spouse based on lie, there's no relationship. So people are working on relationship. Number one is relationship, to be able to feel safe that you can share with your spouse and not have fears of your spouse. Because if we do have it, it brings not such a great results. So that's the very choshev isoy that we need to adopt. I think the number one we need to accept how to activate it. It requires a lot of training on the parent behalf to understand, first accept this concept. It's Gemara in Shabbos, it's Gemara in Gittin, but we'll count out the different Gemaras and the Rishonim also, which bring out that importance of good and healthy communication. Again, as we discussed today, we started this year. It's not about what you say. We can be well educated, what to say, all the tactics, what to say, and what form to say, what kind of words to use. But it's far more important to know how we say it. How we say it. There's two ways we can say with aggression. Very nice message, but that aggression, it will be disputed. But not only will be disputed, with the constant being aggressive in your communications, it will ingrain and install in kids or spouse certain fears of you. And it's when a child has fears of his parent, it creates major errors in the relationship. I'm not talking about I'm not even talking about that it confiscates to establish and create a profound relationship that can forget about it. Not talking about that. Even just to have certain formality, sort of formal relationship, just being diplomatic and just say truth to the parents also won't be if the kids have fears of their parents. But we should not think that the lie stops here, because lie can go to the fears can take the child to lie even in very severe cases, and certainly we need to accept that controlling, dominating, condemning, and we'll talk about it, but especially controlling and using that aggressive expressions, aggressive tone, not expressions, can be very good expression, but to use that aggressive tone puts the fears on the child, and it leads to very not good, not the result. And as I mentioned before, about said, it's not about the external. External is important. External will escalate the relationship when there's internally the child is connected to a parent. When the child internally is not connected to a parent, but is fearful of parent, the physical won't escalate, won't bring any kind of result. Versus if child and the parent have internal relationship, and truthfully there's no need so much of physical, meaning to say trips, external clothing, all those I won't need. The number one reason why the kids crave so much for external, because they keep on escaping and reliving their fears and pain caused by parents. Again, as I said several times, it's not about to feel guilty. There's always way to do tshuva. There's always way to correct our action. I think we should highly encourage that we should more adopt and follow up with Ramban's statement, what he wrote to his son. Tisnaik tomet ledaber im kol odom, kol dovarechu, im kol odom benachas. And this will provide us. It takes some work. Sometimes we don't see the results right away. But in the longer term, not that long, but in the longer term, it will take far. But you will see with the time, you will see major results. How the child will crave to be with you, how the child will crave to spend time with you and to love you and have a connection with you. And that's the truth is that's also number one. The relationship, when the child feels that he has a relationship with his parent or her parent, this give the content to child just to be with the parent, to satisfy the parent, to please the parent. I heard from a Bachanach, like this Bachanach was Yoitze V'Nechtas by Rabbi Yashiv, Zichroni Baruch. So he told me that he asked Rabbi Yashiv why we see a lot of kids dropping out, or we see boys hang out with girls with boys, and some they're just out. So Rabbi Yashiv said one word. He said, when the child does not have a relationship with the parent, he's seeking for a relationship elsewhere. If the child has a profound relationship with the parent, he's not seeking for a relationship elsewhere, especially outside. And number one in relationship is communications. To learn proper communication. It's not that hard. Just same words, just different tune. Because tune, that's what gives a very sweet spice to our statements. By the Shem, call tomorrow and continue beside the Shvan the same. Noise,